Okay, begin.
All right, so hi everyone, my name is Dejon Mitchell. Um, Today I'm doing a presentation alongside Mr. Mohammed on chapter 7 on interacting in teams and groups. So, next slide. So, let's explore our overview here today. So, after this here chapter, you're going to understand the characteristics of a group, the way groups are developed, the dynamics among group members. All right, next slide. Understanding groups. What is a group? I know you guys are seeing the definition here, but in your own words, in layman terms, what is a group? Can anyone give me a definition of what is a group to them? Like, what does a group mean to them?
A group is more than one person.
Right. Thank you very much, Mario. But it is also, all right, interacting and communicating interpersonally with more than one person. All right. So a group is a collection of two or more people interacting and communicating interpersonally over time in order to reach a goal. All right. So let's move on. The dimensions of how groups are structured. So there are three key dimensions, right? These key dimensions are purpose, structure, and time. All right. So you must have these three key dimensions here to have a group and make the group work um, properly. All right. So you can't have structure and time without purpose. Like, what is the mission? Like, what is the group for if it don't have purpose? All right. So we're going to start off with purpose right now. Purpose. Groups exist for very different purposes. They range from friendship support groups to highly focused task groups to groups that, like a staff, that deliver a service or a product over time. The purpose of a group should lead to the structures and processes needed to help the people in the group accomplish their purpose. So, in order for a group to be successful, an end goal, which is the purpose, has to be set in place. All right. What does this mean? This means that the group has to have a clear goal in order to set structure and processes needed to assist the group in what needs to be done. Understood? All right, so let's move on. Moving on to structure. Structure relates to the mechanisms for how the group, for how the people in a group relate to each other. Some groups are highly structured with hierarchical roles or positions, others are undefined and evolved. So, structure of a group or within a group could be broken down into two, formal or informal. All right. But while reading the book and I came across this, I actually did some research on Google, our best friend. All right. And I looked at the different types of group and they had a lot of different types. But it also had formal and informal. But for the book, Exploring Leadership has or dealt with formal or informal groups in chapter 7. All right. So moving on to the next slide. So formal structure settings. There would be an appointed leader who would most likely use a relational leadership element or relational leadership elements or be highly autocratic. So a small example of a relational leadership element. Anybody have a small example? They don't have to be too big, some small. No one? All right. So a small example of a relational leadership element is where a leader engages group members and empower them. Autocratic, making all the decisions and directing or controlling the followers. So example of formal leaders are president, chairman, the big boy, and or director. In formal structure settings is where a group of people come together to do something, but no one is a formal leader. It is also where roles and leaderships are shared and leadership emerges over time. Next slide. Time. Time alone can heal anything. All right. Groups exist for varying lengths of time, and because of this, there are two types. Two types are time limited groups and ongoing groups. So let's dig in a little deeper into the time limited groups. Meeting once to discuss a specific issue or collecting or competing or completing, a task in uno, dos, tres, three meetings, or it may meet for a specified amount of extended time. All right. In time limited groups, there are sometimes a term of appointment. What does a term of appointment? What is a term of appointment? Anybody knows what that means? No one? All right. So a term
I
of
Yes,
um,
nice.
right.
I guess it would be someone who has been appointed for a particular length of time to lead or in whatever position that may be. That is
Okay.
3 months or 2 months, something like that.
You have the basic idea of it. But Mario was going to say something?
You said give an example or
Like what does that mean to you? Term of appointment. Like what does that mean to you?
term of appointment. That sounds more like I would say just a limited amount of time.
Yeah, so you guys, you and Giselle has a basic understanding of it, right? So a term of appointment is where a end date was stated or the group was given a deadline in layman terms. All right. So for instance, it has a group of 10, well, a class of 10 actually, and the teacher says, I want two groups. So each group has 5 people. And the teacher says, I have this project here for you guys to complete, and I want it back. Today's the 7th, so I want it back next week on the 14th. All right. That's a small example of a term of appointment. So this group here has a specific amount of time to complete this here. So an end date, a deadline was given to the groups to finish their project. Understood? All right. So example, and let's see an example of time limited groups, a group of students that were assigned to complete a class project. All right, next slide. Time limited groups can be sometimes classed as an informal group. Time limited groups are often called task force or ad hoc committee. Did anyone here, or does anyone here know what an ad hoc means? Because I when I read the book is the first time I saw it.
It's basically something that happened probably along the way. So you realize there's something to be done, and people just come together to form a group in order to have that task being done.
Nice try, nice try. So ad hoc actually means when necessary or needed. It also means created or done for a particular purpose as necessary. See, so you was there closely, all right. But when I actually looked it up the first time, I actually got this meaning for it. It comes from a Latin word meaning for this. So I was like, nah, this can't be it, man. I don't want to go on the presentation day and talk something I don't know what I'm talking about. So that is the actual meaning, right? It means when necessary or needed. It also means created or done for a particular purpose as necessary. So ongoing groups actually, as its name suggests, is a group that is running continuously. Ongoing groups must deal with member motivation over time, establish processes to welcome and bring new members into the group, and keep the group focused on its purposes. Examples of ongoing groups: a committee, a board, or council. Next slide. So, big boy here, group development. Whether a group is formal or informal, don't matter if you're formal or informal, they go through predictable stages of development as a group, not as an individual, but as a group. All right. One classic module labels these group development stages as forming, storming, norming, and performing by Tuckman in 1965. So FSNP sound like something from Call of Duty. Eh? I don't know about nobody else, but to me it sounds like something from Call of Duty. All right, so FSNP, forming, storming, and norming. So we're moving on to forming as he's starting. All right. So forming deals with a group's initial stages of coming together, which includes such tasks as member recruitment and affiliation. So in the forming stage, work is not the main focus. What is most important here in the forming stage is members get familiarized with one another, right? And they get a better understanding of each other, right? Examples. What information do people need? When will the group meet? How will the group communicate? So the group will communicate most likely via email, via WhatsApp, via SMS, via calls, whatever medium. All right. When will the group meet? We meet in next week. We meet in 2 times a week. What information do the people need? All right. So do I need to bring a book to every meeting to take down points or take down notes, or do I need to bring a case of water to make sure everybody drinking and not thirsty? All right. So The forming stage of development is when team building initially occurs and trust is established. Successful strategies of this forming stage includes building open, trusting relationships that value inclusion. Next slide. Storming. Storming is the stage in which the group starts to get in gear and differences of opinion begin to emerge. All right. So storming to me is the most integral stage of out of all the development stages. All right. This stage can make or break the group in the long run or as soon as it starts. Why you guys think that the storming stage, which means or which is, all right, which is where the group starts to get engaged and differences of opinion begin to emerge. Why you guys would think that this group is so integral, or why you guys would think that it can make or break the group in the long run, or as soon as it starts? Anyone?
I think the storming process is more where you're throwing ideas out to get things done and you're basically building on these ideas. Here's where you're going to see a lot of people characters showing up as some people may not necessarily like the idea that other people may have and tend to get a bit emotional where
Yes.
those things has happened. So people in this stage have to kind of distance themselves from the emotion as opposed from the
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Nice.
So
Very well. Thank you very much. All right. So as the young lady just said, right? People start to show their true colors. You know, no matter if you're purple, you're red, you're blue, people start to show who they really are. You know, and this here stage is where people gel and interact with each other on a more interpersonal level. All right, I just have to mention that as well too. So, if the group is not clear about its purposes and goals, or if the group cannot agree on shared goals, then it may collapse at this stage. All right. Storming can be a short process in which the group comes together to a pretty clear direction, or it can be destructive. Next slide. Norming. Norming follows storming. Once the group resolves key differences, it establishes patterns of how it gets work done. So, norming deals with what is done on a day to day basis, how the work gets done, and who gets the work done. All right. So norming is when the group sets up formal or informal procedures for how the group is going to be run. Example: which reports are needed, who is involved in what, and who and how. Sorry, how do people interact? All right. Within norming, group members get to understand the group's culture and identity. All right. This means that they get to understand what is accepted to what is not by the group member or followed by group members actually or by the group on a whole, or most important, by the leader. All right. Next slide. Performing. Performing is the fourth stage of development, built on the strong foundations of the previous three stages, where the group cycles into a mature stage of equilibrium. All right. Getting its work done. So, what does equilibrium means? It means a state of balance between opposing forces or actions. It also means a normal, balanced state of the body that is maintained by the inner ear and that keeps a person or animal from falling. Equilibrium. All right. So here we see where the group starts, where the group stages play a crucial role, a crucial part in the group success. All right. So these stages would work just fine on an ongoing group if done properly. Why do you think these stages will work fine on an ongoing group? Anyone? All right. So, on the other hand, a time limited group may have to maneuver through the first three stages quickly to get to the performance stage to get their work done in a timely way. All right. So, the performance stage also celebrates accomplishments and fine renewal relationships. This is based on on the relational leadership philosophy. Yeah? Anybody know what's the relational leadership philosophy? Anyone? All right. So the relational leadership philosophy or relational leadership values inclusion, empowerment, purposefulness, ethical behaviors, and so on. All right. So empowering members to learn new skills and share roles in new ways to stay fresh and revisit purposes and rebuild commitment. Next slide. So, although we initially established that there were 4 stages in the group development, FSNP, right? You guys remember what are the initial 4 stages? Come on,
I
guys, we know
think
talk about it.
I think F was forming.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember the rest.
All right, so let me help you out.
Storming,
So,
Norman, performing.
nice. He's our boss. He's our boss. All right, so in 1977, a fifth and final stage of group development was added by Tuckman and his friend Jensen. All right, this stage was created to accommodate the closure of groups experience. Sorry, this stage was created to accommodate the closure that groups experience. All short-term groups need to plan their eventual termination. This is a difficult stage for groups to enter because it makes a period of closure and finality. Smith 2005. Right? So we understand from one of the key dimensions, which is time, that groups exist for over different time frames. All right? At the adjourning stage, a sense of loss is experienced. The adjourning stage should include a celebration and recognition of the group's accomplishments, as well as a reflection on the lessons learned about what was effective and what was ineffective. Next slide. So these are the stages here. So you see it's like a step and ladder. You can't move on to one unless you actually complete one. All right. So forming, storming, norming, and performing. Next slide. So dynamics of groups. So groups engage in various processes that are often called group dynamics. Group dynamics is the study of the group's life. Johnson and Johnson 1994. All right. So the dynamics of a group deals with the group's different processes. So when we say processes, what do we mean actually? We mean the behavior of the people in the group. That's what the processes refers to. Right? These processes entail how a group would make decisions, handle its conflict, how the group meets its leadership needs, and so on and so on. Next slide. So group rules is one of the foundations used for understanding group dynamics because individuals engage in different communication patterns that may signal rules they are adopting in groups, right? That may signal rules that they are adopting in groups. And the groups depends on two kind of rules: group building rules and task rules. Group building rules are actions that focus on the group as a people, including the relationship among members. This is also known as group maintenance rules. The task rules focuses on accomplishing the purposes of the group, including giving information and opinions, moving the group along on task by summarizing and by using various decision-making techniques. Next slide. So we all know that nothing in this world is perfect, especially humans, right? Because we are all different. And sometimes group members may demonstrate something called dysfunctional rules. Dysfunctional rules are those that truly hamper a group's goals and progress. All right. So someone who pushes or someone who doubly pushes their point. All right. This person don't care if the group had made a point. This group don't care if the group had made a decision and already moved on. They push in their point like it's a broken record. This person is called a special interest pleader. All right. This person is who incessantly pushes their point even if the group has already moved on. This person usually has an ulterior motive for these actions. So it don't matter what, they have ulterior motive. So for instance, I am part of a group and the group has to buy chairs for whatever reason. You know, every time we go to a meeting, we stand on up or we sit on the floor. So we have to buy chairs. And the group had made a decision to buy chairs from Harry. And I say, no, let me buy chairs from Peter because me and Peter is friends. And if the group spending money on the chairs by Peter with me money on his side. So I would just blatantly push my point until somebody say, well, you know what, let me go by Peter now. You understand? All right. So someone who resists or block group actions, this person is a blocker. All right. This is the person who disagrees or has negative comments on all discussions and prevent or blocks all actions by the group. All right. So I don't want us to get confused with a blocker. All right. And because it has persons who would block, but they are blocking for a particular purpose. So don't get confused with the actual blocker and get confused with somebody who's been helpful to the group. So a person who express negative opinions because they are truly concerned about the course of direction that the group is going in, right? They see that the group headed on a bad road, so they're saying, hey, what we discussed before isn't making sense, people. Let me try and, organize yourself and get on the right track. All right, so that person is actually helpful to the group. A non-participant, a person who do not contribute to the group, nor does the person listen to the group. Next slide. So it is important to note that dysfunctional roles are those that truly hamper a group's goals and progress. It is also important to know that someone who is effectively using humor to relieve tension or create harmony should not be confused with someone who acts like a clown and never takes the group seriously. All right. It is also important to note that someone who is quiet at meetings but is actively engaged in listening and thinking, and who is willing to support the group is an active member. This type of member might typically be called a follower. Yes, people, we have followers in the world to get things done for the leaders, to get things done on the whole. All right. So next slide. Group norms. This is where the group develops its own customs, habits, and expectations. All right. For how things get done within the group. For example, does the group stay focused on its agenda or wander into other discussions? Do members seem friendly and social or distant and isolated? Do people sit formally and wait for the to be called on by the chair, or is there a more open discussion? All the various practices in a group under norms or rules of conduct which leads to the consistent practices in a group. So group norms contribute to the concept of group norms contribute to the concept of group climate, and the climate is like the group's personality. Next slide. So here are some examples of common roles in groups. Task roles, rules descriptions, examples of rules in use. This here, you can get this in the Exploring Leadership book on page 26 to 27. I'm just going to read one for you guys, and you guys can always use this page 26 to 27 as reference to go back and read if needed. So information seeker. All right, the information seeker allows the group to aware that the group needs more facts or data before proceeding. The example of rule in use is we cannot vote on this yet because we need more information first. So let's ask Sharon to brief us at the next meeting. All right. So again, you guys can get this on page 26 to 27. I would like to pass it on to my fellow presenter, Mr. Richard Mohammed. You can take over from here, please.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Mitchell. And a pleasant good night to everyone. So I will be continuing this chapter from creative conflicts. What is a conflict? So when I looked at the text, there was no clear definition for what is a conflict. So upon doing some research, I found the following statement by Fisher, Evans, and Conflicts 2011. Conflicts means different things to different people, making it very difficult to come up with a universal or true definition. One party may feel that they are in conflict situation, while the other party may think in just a simple discussion about differing opinions. And I'm sure we have all experienced this at some point in time, at one point in time or the other. Um, we have differing opinions about certain things, and another person may just think, no, we having a normal talk. So that's how it is. And as Dujo mentioned previously, conflicts at storming stages of the group development can paralyze a group. And earlier, Dujo mentioned that, um, stating that it can be detrimental to the group at this point, especially for time limited groups where they have a specific amount of time to move and get their activity done and completed. In fact, conflicts at any stage of the group development can cause tension or a hostile climate within the group. However, conflicts can be used to help improve the group's outcome, as we will see later on in this chapter. Pause. Conflicts can be a result of personalities, role conflicts, or disagreement over ideas. Personality conflicts. Generally, personality conflicts occur when two or more people find themselves in conflict over a particular issue, not over a particular issue, sorry, or an incident, but due to fundamental incompatibility with their personalities, their approach to things, or their lifestyle. And I think earlier, um, Jervis spoke about this in the previous chapter, where personalities and ethics, because persons have different ethical backgrounds and different personal lifestyles, as well as, someone mentioned it earlier, emotions. So coming in the into the group with different, um, backgrounds and beliefs, some persons may immediately fall into a conflict. And a good example here is, you may be in a group where a person does things haphazardly, which you would disagree with, since you believe in having things done in an orderly manner. Role conflicts. The assumption of what you may be bringing to the conflict about your own role or your expectations of others that clash with their with their assumptions. Simply saying you have questions about your own role within a group, or you have concerns over the roles of other persons in a group. And 100% sure we have all experienced this in COSTAT at one point in time, because in each course we do, we have to do a group project, and guarantee that each person may say, well, Tom's supposed to do question 1, but Tom is not doing question 1. Tom deciding to do question 5 instead, when everybody thinking he's supposed to do question 1. So this is a role conflict. And the third one is conflict in ideas. This is often called controversy and difference in opinion. And ideas is essentially for the group to make the best decision. Such controversies need to be handled with civility and open dialogue, according to Higher Education Institute. And finally, successful communities solve conflicts rather than avoid them. And this is very important. When it is that you are in a group and you decide to brush the conflicts aside rather than face them straight on, um, it can turn around to bite you in the long run. And resolving conflicts are, meant to be used through negotiation or mediation rather than power strategies. And this one is very important. The power strategies, part you'll see next. So here we have a scenario And this scenario is a group is having a breakfast meeting tomorrow and they have a conflict, right? So I want to ask everyone, what type of conflict you think may be the cause of this? Anybody?
Um, I would say their preference for what they will want for breakfast.
Well, yeah, because that could be a personal preference, right? So, uh-huh.
Looking at it, I am seeing a gentleman there who very vociferous, well, appears to be in the way in which he is. You know, it's a whole strong arm tactic,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And it looks like both of them are doing the same thing. So
Exactly.
there doesn't appear to be somebody who is willing to, you know, pay peacemaker or something like that.
Exactly. All right. Well, that is a very good observation. So, what are we trying to say here? There are two types of conflicts that could be taking place here. One is a difference of opinion, which is a different idea, because some persons may not like the idea of having breakfast, doubles for breakfast, right? And two, which is the personality conflict, where your lifestyle, you would probably choose a healthy lifestyle. So that's why you may not choose doubles for breakfast. But the third one, which I'm not sure who brought it up just now, was using power strategies. And you can see both of them are shouting at each other with placards in their hands. So as we go forward now, you'll see conflict resolution. And in conflict resolution, there are three outcomes. There's a win-win outcome, a win-lose outcome, and a lose-lose outcome. In the win-win outcome, both sides are heard and are satisfied with the resolution of their differences. This usually makes the group decision significantly better than they would have been without dialogue. And this is the preferred outcome. It has um, greater benefits to the group and it makes the group stronger. The second one, the win lose outcome, it sees that one side uses power strategy to win or out talk or rush to a premature vote. And as we mentioned before, we want to move away from the power strategies and the strong arming persons. And lastly, we would see the lose-lose outcome. And in this outcome, both sides use power strategies, and both parties get grossly entrenched or hurtful that no effective resolution is reached, even in compromise. So I'm sure we have probably experienced this at some point in time where within the argument of trying to put forward your decision or your reasoning, you say things which was hurtful to the other party, and the other party was in turn said something which was hurtful to your group, and due to this, emotions was affected, and persons felt distance through this, and even within one side saying, okay, well, let's follow group B. Group B will say no because they feel disenfranchised with the other group and does not want the other group to be a part of their group or does not want to go forward together as a group collectively. And this is probably the worst outcome of them all, right? So as we go forward, we will see the relational leadership model encourages possesses the handle of conflicts, which will promote inclusivity and empowerment. So, as we mentioned before, using the power strategies, using the power strategies, it does not promote inclusivity and it does not promote empowerment. It actually, it actually this empowers persons and it fractionalizes the group. So before you start going forward in group decisions, it's always good to set some rules, and we could do this within the group norms, as we mentioned before. This is where the group says how they would deal with things in a manner. So, group norms help guide the openness and honesty with which members will raise issues of possible conflicts. These ground rules can create an environment for safe differences. Each person should commit to making no permanent enemies in the group in order to be inclusive of all members' opinion. And this is what the relational leadership model promotes: inclusive of all members and having respect to everyone. Conflicts are useful when raised issues that need attention before the group moves to resolution. Right? So we can see here now some advantages and disadvantages of conflicts. And this was taken from the Exploring Leadership text, page 229 and 255 in the slides. Right, so I'll just go through a couple. So some of the advantages: clarifying issues and positions. And as we mentioned before, um, we want to know what is the position or what is your position in the group, or what is the issue in a group. So like for example, the doubles problem we have there. Instead of just buying doubles, we could have buy sandwich, tuna sandwich or something, or salad, so we could solve a problem, right? Second thing is it leads to innovation and creativity. And lastly, inclusivity increase self-awareness. And increasing self-awareness means that before entering a group, you may have a way of thinking about yourself. And once you are open-minded, you would be able to understand what other persons may think about you and your ethical decisions and ethical values and all of these things. And eventually, long enough, it may change or may not change. And some disadvantages are distracting from goal, and this is very bad for time limited groups, because as we say, time limited, you have a limited amount of time to accomplish your goal. And second one is to cause defensiveness. If you believe in something for the entire part of your life, and you all of a sudden become challenged, someone challenged that belief, is an automatic human nature to become defensive and try to protect your belief. So, you all agree with me on that one or no?
Yes, agreed.
All right. So, going forward. Nice. So, decision making in a group. Traditional views of leadership often assume that a group or organization has a formal leader with authority and responsibility for making the final decision. A cer- in a certain in certain occasions where group leaders are unavailable or the group is unable to meet, a positional leader is delegated to make decisions on behalf of the group. Where group decision making is not a major one and does not worth the entire group's time and energy. So a positional leader is someone who, for example, like a vice president or foreman in, let's say, a business or leadership. And they are responsible for making smaller decisions, which which may not need the entire group um, there to assist in making this decision, right? So, but before they could even make a decision, there are a few questions they should ask themselves. So, here we go. Is As a positional leader, there are a few questions you must ask yourself before making a decision. First, purposeful. The decision you are going to make, is it following the group's position or mission? Secondly, inclusiveness. What is your opinion? What opinion my group has on this issue? So you may not want to ask everyone in the group, but you could probably pick a few on, hey, what's your idea on this situation and what you think we should do, right? Empowering. Will this increase or our participation or decrease it, right? So by doing something, you want the entire group to be empowered and feel a part of the group. So whatever you're doing, you don't want to be stepping on anybody's toes and making a decision to do something which some individuals may not feel comfortable being a part of. Thirdly, ethical. And I think this is the most important part. Is it the right thing to do? Is this what our group think would be the right thing to do? Right? Um, Going forward, process oriented. Should I delay my decision so two others can get involved? So you must be able to weigh the decision if it's somewhat large and it needs additional um, interaction from other members of the group, or is it small enough where you could probably make a decision on your own? So you must be able to follow the processes that we have formed in the within the group norms. In a formal group, in a formal organization with positional leaders, participative leadership is often taught to involve the use of decision procedures that intended to allow others, other people, some influence over leader leader's decision. Excuse me. Right. So they stress on allow here, and this is a very important part here. In most cases, this means who the leader choose to represent the group, which is the positional leader, and who is allowed to be in this decision making process. And this can sometimes feel some of the members in the group can feel disenfranchised by this because um, members of the group have a right to be involved, and very well that is their right, and they would feel empowered to say this is our right and we should be a part of the group decision making process. So rather than asking who should be involved, we should ask how best can we involve the members of the group in order to go forward with the decision making process. And in decision making and informal groups as well, there's always tension about authority and the role of participants in the decision making process. Since people often expect or demand a role in decision making. For example, the current situation with the COVID lockdown. And in the early parts, there were lots of voices saying they should not close the borders or they should not close the schools or restaurants or even bars. And by right, you're trying to curb a situation here. And you want to know if it is that they were allowed this to be in this decision making process, right? what would have been the outcome. So sometimes it could be good, sometimes it could be bad. Right? Right. In 1989, Yuk identified a continuum of 4 possible decision-making procedures, from autocratic to consultation, joint discussion to delegation or participation. And this ranges from no influence to high influence. Similarly, Johnson & Johnson in 1994 describes 5 methods of decision making. 1, which is decision by authority without discussion, which is similar to autocratic. So that is using your authority and not discussing it with anybody. Second one is expert member. This could be under consultation. Average members opinion, and this could fall under consultation as well. And the fourth one, decision by authority after discussion. So this could be a joint discussion. This could fall under the joint discussion. And the fifth one, majority control. Majority control falls under participation and delegation. And according to the leadership, um, relational leadership model, the majority control is the preferred way to deal with decision making. Positional leaders who make important decisions in autocratic manner alienate the group members even though they have the authority to do so. So by making an autocratic decision, group members feel alienated, feel like as if they were, why it is I am a part of this group? If it is that the positional leader is making all the decision for himself without consultation, without discussion. Groups may prefer, before any important decision making, that they have a discussion and use the consensus model. And in other words, the consensus model is, if it is that you don't agree with something, or you don't agree fully with the idea, however, you think the decision could work. And within making that decision, there was no damage or harm in persons' emotions and disrespecting anybody. That could be a part of a consensus model. So, in 1996, Reiner offers a guideline for reaching consensus within a team. Oh, sorry. Clear clearly define the issues facing the team, focus on similarities between positions, ensure that there is adequate time for discussion, avoid conflict reducing tendencies such as voting. And consensus brings the highest commitment among participants. It is the most informed by diverse knowledge based in the group. However, it takes the most time. So in the consensus model, you need to be a little patient and you need to go through the procedures and stuff in order for you to come up to the decision, the final decision. And we can see here, when teams fail to reach consensus, they often because they do not allow enough time for each member to discuss their perspective and opinion. Mutual respect and trust among group members is a critical component to successfully achieving a decision by consensus. Teamwork. Teamwork can be defined as a group of people with different skills and different tasks who work together on a common project, service, or goal with meshing functions and mutual support. And many authors have related teamwork with sporting metaphors. and we could see one here. We can no longer afford the luxury of even a few individuals working in, in isolation from the rest of the organization. Strength is not in the individuals, but in the team. Put a group of superstars together on any team, whether basketball, cricket, or football, and they will lose if they do not if they operate as individual superstars. But once they start operating as a team, they will become unbeatable. Taylor in 1989. And we have a little phrase here: all for one and one for all. And some of our older classmates may remember this from a popular TV show. So anybody have an idea what all for one and one for all may mean, or what do you think it means?
There's only musketeer, and if we don't stand up for each other, so it's basically like if you touch one, you touch all.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right. Anybody else? No. All right. So that's a very good point. I'm not sure who said it, but that's a very good point. And all for one and one for all means each individual should act for the benefit of the group, and the group should act for the benefit of each individual. And let me explain this a little bit using a football theory. So let's say Champions League is going on right now. So that is like a big trophy in Europe for club amongst different countries, right? And the team goal is to win Champions League, right? So if it is as a group, they go forward and win the trophy, right? That is all for one. The team acting together for one goal, which is to win Champions Trophy. And now, in turn, all for one for all, meaning after you win Champions Trophy, there's a prize, and that prize is shared amongst the team, shared amongst the group, right? So that's a good food for thought in case anybody wants to have it. Right. So as we go on, as we mentioned at the start of the presentation, a collection of people do not automatically constitute a group. Likewise, not all groups are teams. Hughes, Kenneth, and Curfey in 1993 defines the difference between a group and teams, although both have characteristics of mutual interaction and reciprocal influence. Teams have a stronger sense of identity and common goals or tasks. In addition, task independence is higher within a team than in a group. Each team member usually have more distinct roles than group members. And just going back to the same analogy we had just now, a football team, each team member has a function. A goalie is to make sure nobody scores the goal. The defensive line is to prevent persons from coming towards the goal. The midfield is to control the play, and the attacking players is to attack and try to score a goal on the opponent. So when you look at this, it defines what is a team. Teams must have clear goals in order to achieve success. Often teams do not take the time to formulate goals or set goals that are unclear and unattainable. The SMART rubric provides a framework for teams to use as they establish their goals. Parker 2003. So SMART rubric is an acronym for being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So your goal must be specific. Yeah, goals must be specific that everyone understands and everyone is clear on what it is that they're working towards. It must be measurable. So It must be able to tell we're moving from point A to point B, and within those movements that have 3 stops, we must be able to say, right, we accomplished the first achievement, so we could go on to the second, third, and then finish at point B. It must be attainable, it must be realistic and possible. So let's say we want to plan an outing or something, going to Port of Spain. So that is achievable. But as a group from Costa, we want to go outer space. Um, Currently in this situation, I'm not 100% sure if that is realistic or if it is achievable. In other words, relevant. The goal must be in alignment with the direction of the organization and its overall strategy. So it must be relevant to the team and the group, and it must be time bound. There's a set time frame by which the goal will be achieved, example, within a semester or a year. So for all of our students.
Hi, Richard. I just want to
Yeah,
add
yeah.
more acronyms. Of late, there's been the development in the SMART rubric to the smarter rubric. So we added an E and an R, and the E stands for ethical and environmentally sound, and the R means that your goals also have to be resourced, which means you have to have the resources to be able to accomplish these goals that you're setting. So goals have to be additionally ethical and environmentally conscious, and they also need to be resourced, which means you have to have the wherewithal to be able to actually accomplish it. So making goals without those usually make them a little useless, kind of thing. But that was a development that was added on maybe in the last um, in the early 2000s. That was added on by Drucker and the others. All right, so you could think about it or keep it in mind. You didn't have to bring it up here, but I thought adding it here would add some usefulness to other people. So the SMART rubric has evolved into being smarter, SMARTER. So you have an extra E and an extra R there. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we would add it in later. Okay.
You don't need to add it in. It's just part of the discussion that I wanted to bring up with you guys.
Okay, no problem. Right, some crucial factors for team success. Um, this was in the textbook as well. So this is just a couple that we pulled out. Page 260, Parker 2003, page 260. Disregard organizational boundaries in effort to arrive at the best solution. Understanding common goals and targets are mandatory of all team members. So it's essential that the entire team work towards a single goal and doesn't go off on a tangent saying that they want to accomplish something else because they're on this line. So the entire team must be on a common goal. The team must be willing to accept and try ideas that are different from the norm, even if it means modifying the established process. So sometimes at the beginning of the group, we want to establish how we're going to do things and certain ways we want to do things. But as we get into doing it, we may realize, wait, this is not working for us. And we want to revisit this and try something different, try something new. And each person in the group should be open-minded to say, right, let's try it and see what's the outcome. And lastly, a bit of humor when discussions get tense and the pressure to complete a task is high. And this happens a lot because it's time limited many persons, excuse me, many persons coming to the deadlines become very agitated and tense and want to argue about all sorts of things. So easing the tension a little bit with a little bit of humor, a little joke in between, not excessively, but just to ease the tension and calm the nerves a little bit is required. Team learning. Team learning can occur in many different ways through group projects, experiments, or group studies. The learning unit of an organization are teams, group of people who need one another to act. Team learning happens in dialogue with each other through reflection on shared experiences. Dialogue is a sustained collective inquiry into everyday experience and what we take for granted. And for me, I learned something um, when I just started Costa. That was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. I learned how to use Google Doc. I never knew how to use Google Doc. I never knew it even had something called Google Doc because I used to do my essays or whatever on Word and I would send it to everybody. And that was an enlightening experience for me because it was able to view each person um, work on the same page at the same time as they work on it. And within groups, we have all experiences at some point in time. It could be different experiences, and persons may share their experience. And like some old people is normally say, experience is wisdom. So it's always good to share your experience. Leadership implications. In a productive work community, leaders are not commanders and controllers. I want to read that again. In a productive work community, leaders are not commanders and controllers, bosses and big shots. However, they are servers and supporters, partners and providers. And I think this is exceptional because to be a leader, it doesn't mean you have to be a boss. You don't have to be a commander, a controller. In fact, a better leader is someone who supports or provides assistance and help the team along the way. Participants and leadership must all share the responsibility of processing any shared group experience to make a conscious process as a team. Success needs to be understood as well as failures. Too often, groups do not reflect on why something worked really well, but spend hours and hours finding errors and failures. And I have a example here, but it's not to deal with a group, but it's something to show you about um, focusing on reflecting on your success, right? And in World War II, the Royal Army kept losing planes in that World War, and they kept coming back. And when they observed the planes, the fuselage and the wings were shot. So they kept reinforcing the fuselage and reinforcing the wings, right? But they keep losing planes. So they sent some information to an engineer in England, and he said, "The success is before you. The reason why the planes are coming back is in front of you because the cockpits were not shut." So instead of they looked at the success and why the planes came back, kept looking at the reasons why we have holes in the plane. So instead of focusing on the negative and failures, you could probably focus on the success, why something would, and you could probably replicate that into other factors of the group in other areas in which that it may not be working. And here we have a leader. And this is an example of a leader where he's helping two people to succeed because the arrow going up, right? So, team leadership. Team performance and team development are two critical functions of leadership. The relational leadership model stress on the importance of both functions with emphasis on process-oriented, which is team development, and purpose, which is team performance. Team performance, accomplishing the group goals, making decisions and plans, achieving results, and solving problems. Team development, establishing effective relationship, creating an environment in which individuals feel valued, and facilitating cohesion within a team. Productivity, innovation, creativity, decision making, quality, problem solving, and use of resources are all increased or enhanced as a result of people working in team structures. Why teams fail is also widely documented. It is often a result of poor leadership. Characteristics of team leadership. Clear elevating goals. Group the group believes the goal is worthwhile and it is clear enough to tell when the objects have been met. Result-driven structure. Excuse me. Result-driven structure. The group purpose needs to drive the structure of the team. Competent team members. The group members must possess appropriate technical knowledge and interpersonal skills to work collaboratively as a team. Unified commitment. The group has a sense of identity and level of team spirit that has been intentionally facilitated and developed. Collaborative climate. All individuals contribute collectively to the success of the project, and individual accomplishments are integrated into the whole team's efforts. Standard of excellence. Standard of excellence are established and clearly understood by the team with emphasis on everyone performing at the highest level. Principled leadership. The leader establishes priorities and helps the team members stay focused on goals, sustain collaborative environments for the team, and manage performance. External support. The team is provided resources, which is money, equipment, and supplies to accomplish its goal and is given recognitions for it. I think this is probably within the SMART rubric, the external support. And here we have a little picture with the characteristics of a team. And on top we see it have the common goal. Then we go to team spirit, trust, leadership, mutual accountability, interdependency, defined roles, streamlined direction, and collaboration. And once you put all together, you will be successful. Based on research findings from effective teamwork, Hughes, Ginnett, and Murphy in 1993 provided 4 design components needed to establish teams: task structure, group boundaries, norms, and authority. Task structure: the team understands its task and finds meaning in it. The team is given autonomy to accomplish the task. Group boundaries: the size of the team is just right, not too big, not too small. Diversity exists amongst the team, and the team has sufficient knowledge, information, and interpersonal skills to accomplish goals harmoniously. Norms: the The team has a set of norms to guide the behaviors of the team members. Authority. There is a flexible rather than rigid use of authority by the leader, and team members that allow for open debate and instill a sense of empowerment and trust, as well as a degree of command when complacent by compliance by the group members is warranted. And we're coming to the end here, which is a chapter summary. Groups are the building blocks of community practice. Groups function in different kinds of groups that are at different stage, or we function in different kinds of groups that are at different stage of development. In this chapter, the group development models and principle of group dynamics included aspects of decision making, conflict resolution, team learning that inform group practices. It is important to note the difference between group and team and the intentional process of developing working groups into effective teams. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, if there are no questions, I would pause the recording.
All right, sir.